Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Season 5, Episode 3 of The Handmaid's Tale Border. This was directed by Dana Gonzalez and written by Ali Monroe. So like I always do, I'm going to separate my review into different parts. We'll start with June's story, then we'll go to Serena, and then we'll finish off with Lydia. So we open with June holding an image here of Hannah. This is setting the stage for this episode for June, and that she is back on this path, like we saw at the end of last episode where Hannah was with Serena. She's on a mission to get Hannah back, and she wants to know what that purple color means that she was wearing, and she wants to get in touch with Nick. This is when Moira drops the bomb that there is a group of women at the border who have had luck getting messages to people in Gilead. But Moira didn't tell June this because they're homicidal refugees, she says, and didn't want June around them, which makes sense. But she says, fine, I'll ask them to meet for Hannah. Specifically not for June here. Because June is a little pissed at Moira about this because she's like, why didn't you tell me this? It's not your choice. So we meet Lily, who's one of these women, and we learn she's one of the women June actually traded for Waterford. And she's like, how did you get us all out and all of these kids as well? And June says, I was lucky. And then Lily says back, women always say that when they have done something extraordinary. I actually really like this writing and this line. It makes a ton of sense, and I think it speaks to a lot of people. And we see when they get to their base, Lily says they can't be too careful because they're very close to no man's land. This explains why they have so much security, so many guns, and you see this upside down American flag, which is a symbol of distress here. And we see when she sees this wall they have, all the people they got out, this is going to really reignite June, because there's a feeling June's had throughout the show she's the only one really doing anything about getting all these people out of Gilead. And you see we learn that May Day is everywhere, and it could literally just be people trying to do some good, people in their houses, families helping this cause. And what makes May Day so smart, there's no specific location, there's no symbol, they have to be in hiding. And June's like, we thought we made it up, we thought it wasn't real. Thought we made it up because we had to. And Lily says back, well then you're May Day too. I like this. Again, I like stuff that's called back to earlier seasons, call back to earlier June mindsets, and kind of getting even little closures and payoffs here later on, so many seasons later. So we see that June and Moira are actually helping sew disguises for Martha's here. And June is given powdered arsenic that the Martha she's making disguise for is going to use in a week on a DC commander, which will be poison. You see that one of the women says arsenic is a terrible way to go. June definitely likes these type of people, or Moira's kind of turned off by that. But you see this is actually setting up what I believe is when Serena later in the episode gets flowers from a DC commander that's very powerful, Mark says, I'm sure this is the DC commander they're talking about that they're targeting. So that should kind of come full circle. Some stuff is layered on here and can get a little sappy. In particular, I felt the sappy moment was when an eye shows up getting somebody out. And he's like, I'm going to go get back a wife and kid I left behind. So June sees this more as hope, but I think it's kind of beating a dead horse. We've seen a lot of hopeful moments happen in this episode for June, but I feel like it was just getting a little repetitive here. And just can't put my thumb in it, but this felt a little corny to me. So June finally gets through to Nick, talks to Nick, and we learn that the purple means that Hannah is being prepared for new school, where it's a high commander daughter who's training to be a wife. And this is where Nick says the Mackenzies really love her, though, but this is where June just speaks reality again of the situation, where she's like, they love her so much they're sending their 12-year-old daughter to train to be a wife. And you see June suggest Nick, like she always does, to kind of keep an eye out for Hannah, maybe transfer. But this is where Nick is like, he has obligations now, he has a wife. And this is where June has, doesn't say like this, but the who is she moment. But this is tough for June to hear, but there is a happiness to just talking to Nick, and that he's with a woman who doesn't seem bad. And he gets to ask about Nicole now, but he warns June to be safe, be careful, because Mackenzie is powerful. And June says to Nick, hey Nick, try and be happy, okay? This is a callback to last season when Nick said this to June. And they still have thoughts of each other kissing. Again, this is like the true love underlying this whole show from the start. As much as June loves Luke, her deep, true romantic love is with Nick. So you see what they're setting up here, where June says, how am I supposed to keep my baby girl safe from here to Moira? And Lily tells June Serena is coming back. So we have Serena coming back, June talking of going back to Gilead, and we're going to now go into Serena's storyline before we get to that last moment with June and Serena. Mark says to Serena that he is doing all this for her to make up for the miscommunications that happened with Fred, but Serena gets suspicious and says, you couldn't be doing all this to gather info to bring back to the Americans or Canadians, could you? which is totally the truth right now with Mark. And he says, not at all. And she kind of shoos Mark out of her room here, and he's like, are you worried about your reputation? She's like, wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea. She doesn't want people thinking that she is working with Mark and spending too much time with him, or even seeing Mark. So that is why she's getting more suspicious now. Now we finally get to meet Commander Mackenzie, who we've met his wife before, Mrs. Mackenzie, but we always hear about Commander Mackenzie. And he is Mr. FBI agent from Ozark. So good to see him getting more work. And you just know from that character in Ozark, the kind of character this actor plays, that Mackenzie's going to be pretty bad at the end of the day. But we see he has found out that he knows it was June who killed Fred, but he thinks it was the Americans who helped her do it, not knowing that the one who really helped her do it is Lawrence, who's standing right next to him. Serena here is seeing Nick and sees him with a wife, and also might be thinking that he's coming around to the Gilead way a bit. Not only did she have to blackmail him, but he is doing everything she's been saying so far, so maybe he's actually thinking there's hope for Nick in her eyes. Now, everything with Serena I really liked in this episode the best, especially this dinner table scene. And you see Lawrence brings up the good reaction that this funeral service got for Fred, and this is something totally Serena would want to hear and talk about, but it's funny that Miss Mackenzie's talking about how wives aren't into that. But we see what's important here is that Commander Mackenzie brings up that him and Serena have a similar adversary in June, and he's worried that if she can get to Fred, she could get to his family. He knows the threat June is now. He's not playing dumb. And even when Miss Mackenzie's like, we wouldn't want to put the trauma on Hannah to have the birth mother killed, Commander Mackenzie says Agnes is strong. She will understand when she has to. So clearly he's made the choice that the ends justify the means here. And that June Osborne is a cancer, he says, and you have to cut her out. Now, I think this is super important because this explains Mackenzie's decision, because he says in the hearing with Serena later on when they make the decision to send her to Toronto that he first slips up and says, I want you, and then he says, we want you to go to Toronto. To me, that tells me that Mackenzie made that final choice of her going to Toronto for him because he wants her as her connection to June. In some way, he's got a plan for her and helping take June down. It's also interesting, Mackenzie has a moment with Nick here and says, I hope you're not marrying Rose because of how powerful her father is and that he's friends with her father. So that's interesting, and that gives us more information on why Nick married Rose, possibly. Again, hoping that Nick has this long-term plan here and moving up the ranks. And Mark also brought up the offer he gave Nick last episode again to help him out and that he would get him to see Nicole more. But Nick has cold feet here. He's paranoid right now. He's been slowly moving up, but he's also pulling back a bit too. So it's interesting to see where Nick's endgame is here. Now, I also brought up this dinner table scene was how Lawrence is single and that he's not married, and that gives you less power in this society. This is where Serena sees an opening, of course. And when we see Lawrence and Serena together, Lawrence says her Fred should have never done that to you, talking about her finger. And Serena agrees with this, and she's like, I'm beginning to wonder if it isn't a blessing that he won't be around to raise our child. I loved Fred, but a boy needs a strong father to guide him in his life. And then she says, you know, Mackenzie is right. An unmarried man in Gilead has limited influence. So this feels like Succession. It feels like House of the Dragon at this point, where Handmaid's Tale is dipping into the politicking game of people marrying people for power, which I actually liked. And that it makes things more interesting going on with Lawrence here. And you see Lawrence sees what she's doing. He's like, we're going to protect you and your child. He says this terrified. And with Lawrence, he's so scared of Serena. He's very chicken here. But again, I do think he was part of that plan to get Serena to Toronto because he knows that she's not going to make it in Gilead, being this unusual woman like he says in the conference later. But it is interesting that he does keep his word to protect Serena and the baby. So it's interesting. Like, does he have a long-term goal here to take down Serena, or is he that scared of her, and has he kind of warmed up to her a bit, protecting her? It's interesting and hard to kind of read, to be honest. Why is everybody just letting Serena keep progressing? Now, where things get fascinating is Mark with Serena after the dinner. And he's talking about Gilead to Serena, saying, surface level beauty doing its best to paper over a stunning amount of hypocrisy. I also thought this was hysterical to hear him say, because this is not just Gilead, this is Serena in a nutshell. But he gets the invite to come inside. Marky! But you see Serena's like, my place is here. This is my home. There's so many things I want to accomplish. And he's like, you're finally a free woman. You want to throw that away? This is going against what Mark really wants for Serena, of her being free, starting over, and leaving this. But you see, she's like, I want to thank you for everything you have done for me. This is a very genuine moment from Serena. And she gives him this awkward little kissy. And you can see Mark's, starting to sweat a bit here. And this is where he's got to start really thinking and focusing up here. And he's like, staying here would be a mistake. You must realize it's not safe for women in this place. Again, the temptation is right in front of him. We know Mark has some attraction and feelings for Serena. But Serena knows what she's doing too. But I do, again, think she was genuine in thanking him. So back to this council moment. Again, the last time we saw Serena even on this podium in front of the council was to get women to read, and her finger got cut off. But here, she gets mostly a win for herself. She doesn't get to stay where she wants, but she's going to be a global ambassador. They're not doing anything to harm her. She has to go back to Toronto, but she's like, fine, then I want a staff, budget, and protection. So she's getting a lot of stuff she wants, and I think Mackenzie's giving her so much and complimenting her here because, again, he can have use for her in getting June taken care of. But man, Mark on the plane here when Serena comes on, he's like, change of heart? Mark, what have you done, you idiot? Because it's like, you've just given Serena more and more, and you're not even realizing now what just slipped under you. She's coming back to Toronto, not in the way you want. She's just going to be more powerful now and bringing Gilead to Toronto. It's just, why did he give her so many open doors here? You really want to see payoff for his so-called plan he has of getting info, but you never can really trust Mark or know if he's that useful at the end of the day. I think there's just a theme going on of how much can you really trust men to do the right thing for a woman that we're supposed to trust in Nick, Lawrence, and Mark here. So I think that's kind of what this season is touching on. How much these men are still letting Serena slip by. Now, Serena, when she gets to Toronto, is in this car, sees more fans. This is encouraging her. It's a happy moment for her. But then we get this June jump scare that happens, and she jumps in the car and she's like, never touch my daughter again. And then she says it again, never touch my daughter again. I love June freak out moments. You've seen that in my previous reviews, but this one just came off a little silly for me. I think it's the face that Elisabeth Moss is making here. I think it just came off like a funny moment for June. I can't, again, put my thumb into it, but I laughed. So I don't think that really landed for me. There had to be a better way to present this, and maybe more in a way that would be more badass. This was just kind of funny. Now, before I give my rating for the episode, we have to touch on what happens with Lydia here. So we see that Esther and Janine are in critical condition, and Lydia freaking slaps Esther on life support here because she loves Janine like a daughter, and she possibly has killed Janine. Now, there is like PTSD for me with this show being in the hospital area again, because that was some of the weakest stuff we've seen in the show when we were there last time, where it kind of felt a little dragged out, and it feels a little boring and a little dragged out here. And she cries over Janine, and she's like, she does not deserve this. I know you have been happy with me, my behavior sometimes, she's saying to God. I was trying to keep my girl safe. Please do not punish her to teach me a lesson. I will turn things around, do things differently. So what it seems like this is setting up is Lydia having her redemption arc, possibly, that she's going to start changing things. And this is the catalyst that would do that. And also, I love Ann Dowd as an actress, but I might get killed for this, but maybe this scene felt a little too much trying to get an Emmy here. So Lydia asked Miss Putnam, though, to come with Angela because Janine, remember, was there when Angela was sick, and she believes Janine was part of the reason that she was saved. But she says this important line, doctors aren't too optimistic, and she's saying everything in current tense, though, talking about Janine, where Miss Putnam saying it in past tense. And she even says that she'll make sure Angela grows up to know where she got her beautiful smile and sweet nature, talking about Janine. Again, all these nice lines and moments you're supposed to feel, they just have her stay alive. Again, this kind of cheats it. So I hope this doesn't, in hindsight, look back kind of just sappy for the sake of being sappy, but then Janine just lives anyway, so we'll see. But overall, I'm going to give this episode an 8. I really liked everything with Serena here and the dinner table and stuff going on and where they're going with this. I like this storyline of Serena now versus June, but also bringing in Commander Mackenzie, another threat here. So it all kind of revolves around Hannah in a sense too. I like that. However, it still feels flat to me this season. I think giving this episode an 8 because it's just solid, but I'm still waiting to really feel engaged, and I'm not feeling it this season. And even the stuff with June and Moira just felt okay to me, but not that interesting. And same with Lydia here. I just feel like it's something that we'll look back at and be like, okay, that happened, but is it really something that is making you feel anything? Because to me, it's not. It's almost feeling a little forced here and repetitive. So I am getting a little worried now about this season, that it's more of in the season 3 territory than season 4, which I really liked, where season 3 kind of had its moments of just staleness and nothing really gripping you. I feel like we're getting that again here in this season so far. So I'm hoping we need a banger coming soon. Something's got to kind of get us back into this, because I don't want the show ever to get into Walking Dead territory. And it's really hard because it's been on for so long. And I think we'll start feeling that Walking Dead territory of repetitiveness or like a loop, because we're still on the June story. And as long as the June story keeps going, we're going to feel that. I feel, at least. So I'm hoping, though, that we get payoff, and stuff with Serena has been really good still. And that if they can just really lean into that more and more, it can finish really good and get really interesting in the middle. But I am waiting. I want this show to go towards spin-off territory. I really do. Or a separate story we can focus on someone else in this world. And they have the testaments there written for them. So I think they need to start focusing on that, because if we keep doing this story of June over and over, it's going to get stale, feel repetitive somewhere we've been. And there's already moments, even lines you'll see that have been in this season that almost are self-reflective of June saying, like, I feel like we're just back where we started. She said that at the beginning of the episode to Moira, and then as a fan, you're like, yeah, I feel that way too. And I don't know if that's a good way to feel. But I'm giving this an 8. Let me know what you guys thought down below. I love to read your comments. I respond as many as I can. Please give a tip if you love what I do. It helps me out in so many ways. You have no idea. And you hit the thanks button for that. And you can become a member today. That helps me even more ways. You get exclusive perks like watching my exclusive live streams and much more. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And I'll see you next time.